Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's December 19th meeting. The first item of business is citizens' comments. Would either of you like to make a citizens' comment? Citizens' comments?
Yes, the citizens decided that it was way better to stay home.
Yeah.
It's too cold to be out
And
tonight.
it's cold as heck.
16 degrees.
Right. So the first item of business is an update from the Trustees of Reservations about activities at your Dover properties. And we have a new system here. We have people sit at the table of honor to make their presentations. So I'd like to I'd like to invite you and Mike to sit at the table of honor. And this way people can hear what you're saying, which is the most important thing. So welcome DA Hayden and Mike Francis of Trustees.
Thank you. We just thought that it would be a good idea to pop in and share with you all the things that are happening on the properties in Dover. Because as you know, we have 961 acres in this town and love our partnership with all of the things that we do here with both the community citizens and the community organizations and county government. So we thought we'd kind of make this an annual activity that will come in once a year and kind of give you a state of what's happening so that you're aware and so that folks who may be watching at home understand what's happening as well. So just sort of in terms of, to give you a little context, to remind everybody, the properties that we have in town obviously are Powasset Farm, Noannet Woodlands, Chase Woodlands, Peters Reservation, and Pekin Hill. So on the stewardship front, and with me is Mike is our stewardship manager for all of the Charles River Valley properties. So he's very intimately involved in everything that happens on that front. Up at Pekin, we are really enjoying a great partnership there with the Dover Land Conservation Trust, the New England Forestry Foundation, the town of Natick, and Dover. What we're finding is that people are using that property more and more. The trailhead in South Natick is working very well, and that people are walking over to the area on top of Pekin Hill. We put, you probably noticed some split rail fencing in there last winter, I guess we kind of finished that. Yeah.
Yeah, the end of the year.
The end of the year, because we
cars.
had been having some real issues with vandalism and dumping at the top of Pekin Hill. So this way we could stop cars and trucks from just driving across the grass. We had people who were getting hooked on the stone wall. We had washers and dryers being dumped up there. So it was getting a little bit, it's kind of a fun place to hide. So the split rail went in, and that has deterred that. But also with that, we have new signage and openings in the fencing to encourage pedestrian visitors, to encourage equestrian visitors. So the property is really well taken advantage of. And if you go up and sit in those Adirondack chairs and watch the sunset, it's pretty magic. On all of our trails throughout town, we really do try to monitor usage with all of the various user groups who take advantage of the open space, whether it's cyclists or equestrians or dog walkers or birders or people who like to hike, so that everybody is sharing the trail and that we get feedback as much as possible from our rangers on the properties as to where there might be tension points and where their things are going phenomenally well that we want to expand on the opportunity for our visitors. At Noannet, we have done a lot of work on the trails. We did a major trail restoration on the Noannet Ridge Trail, which is the yellow trail if you walk that property at all. All of that was revamped, and then we also put in all new signage in Noannet and wayfinding maps at some of the key intersections so people aren't having a hard time finding their way in and out of the property. Along with that, we're working with our colleagues at DLCT and looking at expanding the signage from their newly acquired property at Strawberry Hill, which abuts Noannet, to encourage people to use that entire loop and understand that the trail systems intersect. So that's going to be exciting for us as well. We had a wonderful experience at Noannet that, John, you were very involved in with JB's Keys. Are you aware of the event that we did in November? JB's Keys is an organization based in Dover. It's run by Beth Harvey in support of her son JB, who has Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And we worked with them to have 200 people, these are families in Dover, who met at Powysset and accompanied JB in something called a terrain hopper, which is kind of a tricked out wheelchair that is slightly motorized so that he could go to the top of Noannet Peak. This is a young boy who is 12 years old who loved hiking at Noannet, and when he was 9, he got to the point where he really couldn't get up to the top of the peak anymore. So the Dover Police Department, the Dover Fire Department, the Trustees, JB's Keys, the Dover Mothers Association, and Backpack Health, which is owned by Jim Cavan, who lives over on Bridge Street. Everybody got together and made this happen for JB, and it was a really, really special day and something that I think the town should be very proud of, because everybody coalesced to make this happen for this young man. And it was so interesting. At the end of the day, I overheard him say to his mom, as he was like eating a cheeseburger, he looked at her and he said, "This has been a really good day." So that was very special. So we're proud of that. We also, as you probably know, this was the 3rd year of the Amelia Peabody Memorial Hunt. Amelia Peabody was a original member of the Norfolk Hunt Club and a phenomenal horsewoman. And once a year now, so that the Norfolk Hunt Club can go through, we have again a townwide event where the hunt goes through Noannet Woodlands. We close Noannet for 2 hours. So the hounds and the riders can go through. Everyone gathers at Powysset. We had close to 300 people who saw the riders go off, and then they walked across the street to George Cemento's property, watched them come through the woods, jump over the fences, and it was quite a nice day for folks at the end of November. That was the Saturday before Thanksgiving. Along with those sorts of things that we're doing, we also partner with the town on the deer hunting program. And the training is all done and the testing is done at Powysset, and then hunters are on town and trustees' land, so we monitor that, and that we hope is helping to kind of cull some of the deer population so that we don't have as much of an issue with Lyme disease, although we certainly had other diseases to worry about this summer with Triple E, and that really affected some of our programming at properties, but people came out prepared nonetheless, so that was really great for us. The challenge that we're facing right now at Noannet is that we've had some reports of motorized dirt bikes going through the properties, and I don't know whether that's happening at other town properties, but it's just something that it's hard to track, so we're keeping our eyes open. Once we kind of have more information, then we'll probably end up getting the police involved, but just as a heads up that it is happening and that it's something for everyone to be aware of on the trail systems, throughout the community. Powysset was rocking this year. We introduced our first summer camp called Farmer, Forester, Chef. And what that meant was that children would come and they'd work growing vegetables and flowers and with the barnyard animals and learn about animal care. And then every day they took a cooking class with a farm-to-table approach where what they grew was brought into the kitchen and they cooked. And then on Wednesdays they went over to Rocky Woods in Medfield and did all sorts of wonderful nature things like ponding and building fairy houses and bird houses and all that good stuff. So the camp was a half day this summer, and it was so successful that we're expanding to full day this coming summer, and it'll be running for 7 weeks, and we're very excited about that. The response has just been phenomenal. It's a very unique offering, combining both the farming, the cooking, and the nature exploration. We increased our farm dinners and our cooking classes. We've done a lot of work with children and families, helping them really understand where food comes from. We let some of the fields at Powysset rest this year after 10 years of continuously farming them, and laid cover crop, and we have been doing some farming over at Fork Factory Brook in Medfield. And so we'll be able to start rotating where we're planting to keep everything very healthy. It helps us as well with pest control. Dover, Powasset was certified as organic this year, so that was a big step for us, and we also received organic certification at the other trustees' farms, some of which I manage and some are in other parts of the state. We're introducing a lecture series this winter, which we think will be fun for people who are interested in things like home composting, how to manage pasture if you have animals at home, how to build a home cooking garden, a food garden. So those are new offerings that we're hoping that the community will be interested in. We've also expanded our partnerships with really, really key constituencies in the community of Dover. The Council on Aging and our friends at Parks and Rec are partnering with us on a number of different programs, and they're really, really magic. I would encourage you to come over and watch a cooking class with 12 seniors from the Council on Aging as they attack dumplings, in the kitchen and create a wonderful Asian meal, or with the children who come from Parks and Rec after school and early release days, who go out with the barnyard animals and learn all kinds of things and then come in, quickly wash their hands and get to the business of cooking, which they just love. So those programs are sold out, oversubscribed, and we are really hoping that we'll continue to do more and more of them so that Powasset continues to be part of this community that's matrixed on all different levels. We had cows back at Powasset this year for the first time in 3 years on the rotational grazing program, so that's been a lot of fun for people to see the cows in the back fields. More pigs than ever. Our sows, I have to look at my notes. Betsy, Ginger, Bella, Spot, and Missy have a new beau whose name is Santiago. He's a big boar that we now have at the farm, and we're expecting at least 50 piglets this summer, or spring. I mean, they'll start coming in February for our MIIA CSA program. So that's exciting. A lot going on there. And Mike and his stewardship team built our first ever hay bale holiday tree. I hope you have come to see it. It is, good feedback. Yeah. That was an engineering feat since we didn't have cranes or anything to build it. But it's getting rave reviews, and we had a wonderful little opening and toasting of the tree, and so we're hoping that will become a holiday tradition along with the lighting of the tree here in town. So, did you want to add anything on the stewardship front, or did I miss anything?
I think you really touched all the high notes. Do you have any questions related to stewardship?
So I know I kind of barreled through all that, but we also don't have all evening, so.
I wished you had done signage many years ago.
Where, at NOAD?
At all the properties.
Did you get lost?
Hours, walking in circles at NOAD and Rocky Woods. The sign, and now I know my way around, but, the signage is really good.
It's been a long time,
and the maps are really in the right spots.
Oh, good.
Because it's just the points where you're like, should I turn left? Should I turn right?
Right. And you know that eventually you'll get out, but it really is if you're on a schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I've landed up in neighborhoods in Memphis.
Walk the streets.
But you need to come get me. I have no idea where I am.
There is a compass on your phone.
That's great to hear.
Yeah, right. Before you had the Fitbit, when you really would have had a lot of steps.
Now that I have it here, the story books
the story walks. Yeah.
Right.
We're doing story walks at Powasset and at Rocky Woods.
Okay.
These are great ways to get children and families out and walking in the open space. And what they are is we choose a book, and we've built sort of, remember the old library pedestals that held books? We've placed them on a trail around the farm and throughout Rocky Woods, where you start at the beginning and you go with your family and you read a children's story about the outdoors or about the farm, and we're switching them out about every 6 weeks or so. And they're lovely. People just thoroughly enjoy them. So I'm glad you saw that.
I noticed those. Those were really nice.
Yeah.
Because I live right near Rocky Woods, and for 22 years I've been walking in there. And one of the highlights, my son and I would go onto Whale Rock, have lunch, and I invested in cases of rain pants, because you can really slide down the back side of the rock if you have rain pants on, wind pants. Works really well. So
Try that.
each year I would buy a case from Charles River Apparel of rain pants.
And just slide away.
It was a way, he still to this day loves hiking, but it's something we would just go do, have lunch on top of the rock, and it's like,
That's great.
Love to add that to the summer camp experience.
Yeah, we should do that for the summer camp. That would be a riot.
only works with rain. You don't
Yeah.
go down as well
Yeah.
with that.
No.
So the cafe,
Yes.
the cafe, Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
What about Sunday mornings?
I know.
Can we get coffee Sunday mornings?
If you can find us another staffer, like
Yeah.
Jake Gonzalez, who is a senior this year at Dover High School, and he runs our cafe on Saturday mornings. He's been with us for about 3 years now. This young man is spectacular. But he's graduating, he's going to college, so next summer is his next summer. If you could find us a clone of Jake, we'll open up on Sunday mornings. Yeah, it's an issue, it really becomes in the summertime an issue of capacity for us, but you're not the first person who suggested that, so we're definitely thinking about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With closing the foot traffic because of the animals and not having the driveway, when we ride around the perimeter, so it's actually worked out very, very well. Begin Poisson, and or even if you're in Caryl in the lots and you come through, go out to Rocky Woods, come back, it's coffee time.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice.
It's the perfect spot. So
And all the food is baked at the farm, and
The
it's
baked goods are
really
good.
So now I know why you do all that walking.
That's right, you have to reward
you
yourself.
have to. That's exactly right.
The scones there are really,
Very,
really
very
good.
good. So I will make a
I
note to
I
put
recommend
a
trying
word
them.
out
Give us those cinnamon
to the
buns.
spike groups
No,
and to
they're not
the
fair.
member associates about motorized
That would be
the dirt
great.
bikes.
That'd be
'Cause
great.
We don't. I've seen them on the power lines in Walpole. So there's.
I have too.
Yeah, and then that's sort of a natural progression, crossing 109, coming down the power line in Westwood. But from Westwood to the farm, the backside of the farm, it historically, it's not been the case. Where certainly the cyclists don't ride through those. There's no trail system there. Just the power lines. So mostly, and Eric will tell you this from Hale, we will always do the loop around through Factory Fork into past the gun range into Walpole that way. Don't
Right.
go down the power lines
Right.
because there's not a trail. There's not a trail that either you keep or Hale keeps or that the mountain bike associates keep. So I'll put the word out, and it's really very well adhered to. It's usually people who don't know that it's not allowed. So
And the most recent occurrence was when?
2 days ago, I got a phone call from a resident, I think on Walpole Street, saying that they were, adults on dirt bikes, not like, not electric bikes, but dirt bikes.
dirt bikes.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, it's pretty rare that we get a report like that or see it ourselves. So just worth bringing up.
Paying attention to.
Yeah.
I think it doesn't escalate to more frequently.
It's pretty amazing how well that the chain of the email chains and the posts to the various groups work. So I'll just
Yeah, I mean,
encourage
you've
you
been
to
very
do
helpful
that.
with the biking community. The Hunt Club has been very helpful with the equestrian community. The hikers and the dog walkers tend to talk to themselves, so the word gets out really quick, not talk among themselves, so the word gets out very quickly. So that does seem to work for us. And, anytime there's anything that's of, major importance, we'll put it on Nextdoor. We get a lot of news, frankly, from Nextdoor and in the local papers. So that's great. Thank you.
Well, I thought you did an excellent job publicizing for the hunt, that it would be closed, and you had, I noticed there were people at
Yes.
certain
Yes.
entrances just
Yeah.
turning people away, saying it's closed for the next 2
Right,
hours.
right. So,
The JB Keys event, so well done.
oh, so
So
special.
well done.
Yeah.
The other one other thing I will say that works extremely well when the out of service police cruiser is parked in front of the barn. It slows the traffic down on Powasset instantly. As soon as you
Well,
turn
it
the
also
corner.
confuses me because the first,
It's not out of service, it's just
it's just,
they went looking for,
My car.
right.
Go to Bob's
They're
car.
on foot looking for,
well, it's not funny
Coffee.
though. Well, that's exactly what happened, Robin. The first time that they did it, they parked by the little garage on the street at Powasset, and I arrived on a Saturday morning to check on what was going on and walked directly over to the empty police car to offer the officer who was out walking around coffee, and he wasn't in the car. So, yeah,
Yeah,
but it
there were
does
two
work.
officers during the JB event, one at the parking lot entrance and one at your entrance.
Yeah.
Incredible.
They were phenomenal. They
Yeah.
were phenomenal. And then most of the officers came over to celebrate JB coming down from the peak. The fire department was there. I mean, people really came out for it. It was really special.
great.
So,
Mm.
yeah. So that's all we have to report. If you have any other questions, and if it's all right with you, we'll come back with these periodic
Yeah,
sort
it
of
sounds like a
updates.
terrific range of
Right.
activities. I mean,
Right.
absolutely blow me away.
Good. Well,
Okay.
come visit.
961 acres.
I like the cooking eating classes.
Well, you get to eat after you take
Just
the
here,
cooking
just in
class.
Just in Dover.
They're really fun.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you
Thank you
very
very
much.
much.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Carl, you ready for the hot seat?
There's no hot seat in this room.
No, there isn't.
There's a
No,
hot radiator right over here.
I would like to move the table so that I am right behind the hot seat, the radiator.
Yeah, we can get a little chair made that we can.
That would work for me. So the next item of business is the facility maintenance evaluations. Should I just turn it over to you?
Sure.
Okay, thanks, Carl.
So I solicited 3 price quotes for deferred maintenance, going from 1 year to 20. We did it last year at Caryl.
Right.
The high school's done it, so on and so forth.
Chicory in the jar.
Yes. So the apparent low bidder was On-Site Insight. Did I say that right?
Yep.
The towns used them. It'll just give you a guideline to go by.
Exactly. It's a tool to use.
Yes.
Right.
It's not, they don't bring in the professionals
Right.
as far as architects and so on and so forth. They just
When you
strictly
go to
look at the
do-
roof
right.
and say, okay, how old is it? It's 10 years old, all right, we'll plug a number for 20.
Right, and so when the time comes,
Mm-hmm.
that's when you have to engage real professional, well, trade professionals,
Correct.
right? But
Not
it's
that they're not
just,
trained, but it's
right,
not
it's just-
like
it's
bringing
just
in
a
a mechanical
tool, right,
engineer
right,
or
right.
electrical engineer to look at it.
Right.
It's just a
Right.
tool, like
exactly,
you said.
right,
They came in at 14.7 for the townhouse, the library, the protective agencies building, the highway, and I also included the park and rec shed, which is behind the highway.
okay. What about where Park and Rec used to be, that
Whiting
Run
Road.
Whiting Road? No,
I did not include that building.
okay. Do you think we should?
We could, but there's still undecided what they're gonna do with the building.
Right, what do you think, is it worth including?
I would go with what we have.
Okay.
And then if we need to, I mean, I think it'd be easy
Okay.
enough
To add it?
to add it.
I mean, if you wanted to add it, if I had to estimate, you're probably talking, because they charge per square foot.
Right,
I would guess it would be about $2,000.
okay,
So
all right,
relatively small now.
all right.
Right.
Well, I think these are the main,
Mhm.
and I mean, you definitely hit on the right points. This is a tool.
Yes.
It doesn't really give you a detailed information about when you replace things, when the time comes to replace things. With your experience, along with this report, you'll come up with a recommendation that this is the time to replace it, and at that point, we would have to engage trade professionals to really understand.
And, you know, it's a tool that the schools, I mean, so looking at it from the capital budget committee side, and we, you know, when this happened a few years back, I mean, it just made the whole process just a lot easier for the regional school, and a lot easier for the Chickering school, and then a lot easier for the capital budget committee. But so it's more like it's a schedule of potential events out over time.
Yeah.
And I think the region would take a look at it and they'd adjust it as
Yes.
they went through time, depending on actually, you know,
Yes.
so the roof comes up in 20 years, but the roof looks pretty good, so we'll put that out.
Sure.
And it was just a much easier dialogue. It was really pretty terrific. So, good.
Absolutely.
So,
Carl, in the building in the back of the town garage, where next to where
the Park and Rec shed,
the Park and Rec shed.
that is the official name of the
The
building.
Park and Rec shed. Have we ever thought about
they sell beer?
expanding the footprint of the Park and Rec shed, and then rather than having the Whiting Road building, which essentially is unoccupied, and we've had it rented for a while, is that, you know, whatever that was used for? It seems like that building obviously is it's an asset of the town, but it's going to be in need of repair at some point in time.
Yeah,
pretty
but
quickly.
it's an actually interesting looking building.
It really is.
Yeah.
Was that the garage at
It
one point?
Used to be, back in the day, it used to be the old salt shed.
Oh, really?
Then they converted it to a maintenance shop,
Okay.
and then Park and Rec.
And they stuck Dave McTavish and Park and Rec in there.
Well, that actually falls under the Park and Rec. That building does not fall under.
Now, I don't
building.
understand this jurisdiction. If you say so, yes.
Which building? Which one are we talking about? now?
Whiting.
Whiting Road.
Whiting,
Not the Whiting, the one behind the highway.
the shed.
Right.
The shed.
I don't budget for anything in that building.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
Oh, he was talking
I-
about the shed.
I organize repairs for them, but Park and Rec pays for them. Like the furnace, if the furnace goes down, had the oil tank replaced one time, compressor, and so on and so forth.
How about the Board of Health trailer? Has anybody ever been inside the Board of Health trailer?
I have.
You have?
Mm-hmm.
You can't talk about it though in public.
He's alive. That's all he's going to say.
It's
Right.
there.
It's there.
It's standing.
It's standing.
Watertight.
It's under the pole barn. Safe and secure, locked up.
Thank you for that.
So do you need a
Do
motion?
we need a motion?
The board would like to give a motion to approve, to authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract with Onsite Insight for the facility maintenance capital improvement plan.
Oh, so
I will make that motion.
So moved.
Aye.
Thank you, Carl.
Thank you, Carl.
Anytime.
Very much.
See you. Have a good holiday.
Very good job on the salting, sanding, the Caryl building on Wednesday morning at dark 30 was already plowed. The de-ice was down both this Wednesday and last Wednesday and Friday.
Good.
So very well done. I don't know if it was you or Rusty, but somebody had passed me in the gator on last Wednesday morning.
That would have been Brad.
Brad.
Neither.
Neither. Don't thank Brad.
I will. I will pass it on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. So the next item on our agenda is to vote and to accept and expend the Council on Aging formula grant funds, which I know we've done before, but Janet, would you like to come up and? So we do this every year, right? We get,
We do.
right.
We do. So we look at this budget every year, and I know you're looking at fiscal year 2021 budgets, but tonight we're actually reviewing the fiscal year 2020 formula grant. Prior guidance was to submit this budget once our contracts were issued from the state, which just occurred a few weeks ago. But in consultation with Town Administrator Chris Pirelli, we've been talking about in future that we may prepare the formula grant budgets in coordination with our other fiscal year budgets so that we can kind of provide a clear view of all of our budgets and our sources of funds for a fiscal year.
That makes a lot of sense, right?
Yeah, I wrote this budget last November. So this budget right now is for fiscal year 20 is for the amount of $13,752, and it's factored at $12 an elder for 1,146 Dover elders, which is based on the 2010 federal census. Formula grant funds are allocated in the state budget to the Executive Office of Elder Affairs, and then they're distributed to the councils on aging in the over 300 municipalities in the state. The formula monies that we use are to promote, enhance, and to support the health, well-being, and independence of seniors in our community. Our formula grant funds for this budget, fiscal year 20, are the same as for fiscal year 19. The line items are the same. The amounts have been adjusted slightly, but we've had cost of living increases for the staffing, and the fitness programs remain the same at $1,260, and the other two line items are just decreased funding. So it's pretty straightforward budget.
And this is something you have to apply for, right? They don't just give you money?
It's actually based on the federal census. So
Okay.
so we're looking at monies that will come to every community. We have to fill out the budget. We have a contract that usually the town administrator will sign once the budgets are approved. And then we have reporting that we do to the community.
So are there any questions?
Well, so what'll happen is this is based on 2010,
This is based on
and
20.
so the census is 2020,
Exactly.
so it'll change as we go.
So next year, it will remain the same because we're doing the census starts in April 2020. And so at that point, they'll gather survey the community, hopefully get all of our seniors and homebound people counted, especially because they're looking at doing a lot of the census survey online now. So we've been talking with the town clerk how we can make sure all our seniors get counted. But the numbers will probably kick in when we get to the 2022 budget. And we should see our numbers increase because
That's
the
what I was
town
thinking.
clerk numbers
That was changed.
are clearly greater than the federal census
Right,
numbers.
right.
And you also have to remember the baby boomers will now be counted. So you're going to have people born between 1950 and 1960 that were not counted in 2010 census that will be counted here. And so our numbers will grow. And so the income from the grant will increase as well.
We don't know anybody born in those years.
No. Or even before.
All right.
But yeah, the governor's very supportive of the senior community, so I don't see the rate of $12 an elder being decreased at this point.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
So I move to authorize the acceptance and expenditure of the Massachusetts Office of Elder Affairs formula grant in the amount of $13,752.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you
Thank
very
you, Janet.
much,
Great
Janet.
holiday.
Thank you.
Very well done. Thank
Yes,
you.
you too.
All right, so the next item of business is the MIAA cybersecurity grant acceptance. We're just rolling in the grants.
We're just rolling week after week, meeting after meeting.
Another grant
We
to
should have
accept.
like, you know, that bar
The
thing
bar,
where
we
you-
should, we
the
should.
grant receipts go up. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so our insurance provider, MIIA, provides an annual grant to a number of municipalities that's capped at $10,000 a year. Just a quick email to send over to apply. One of the priority areas for them is cybersecurity. That's certainly a priority area
Right.
for us. So we put in a quick grant and we got $7,000, which will help go toward our cybersecurity efforts that we've contracted for a couple of weeks ago. So we'll be able to put this $7,000 toward what would have been $7,000 from the IT slug of money that we had approved last year can now go towards something else
That's
because of this grant.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Wow, well done.
great work.
So I move to accept from MIIA a $7,000 cybersecurity grant, Madam Chair.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One of the things Chris and I have been talking about is maybe putting a bunch of these grants in the consent agenda, because many of them are recurring rather than having them, you know, they're still listed and we'll make note of them, but It
Always
will
nice
just-
to tell the residents that we're getting
Right, but I
money.
mean, we still would do that, but just,
Okay.
it will just kind of help.
And once we get our new website up, that'll be also a
You
great
think? We'll have
place
it
for
linked?
us to be able to share this type of
Right,
news with
right,
folks.
right. I mean, you could say, you know, the town received, because I've seen that on other websites.
My
Right.
only exception to that would be if it's, some of these awards have been in six figures.
Oh, for sure.
Right. You know, because it was nice putting the Green Communities Awards out on the website, right? So our next item is the award for the washed sand bid. What is non-washed sand? Does
Dirty,
anybody
dirty
know?
sand.
Right.
It's the kind of sand we use on Cedar House.
Mr. Dwelly.
It should be all washed. The water, you know, sort of comes,
Award for the washed sand bid.
On my street, but not on Bob Street.
Our highway department does a competitive bid process every 3 years for sand that helps the
Wash
cars
sand.
washed sand, excuse me, stay on the road during snow and ice events, as well as the pickup cost of the, I guess what would be unwashed sand after it's been driven on and collected by street sweepers. So we got the bids in last week, and the figures you see here, 20.43 per ton for delivery and 14.94 for pickup, were the low bidder. And they're companies that the highway department has used in the past.
So the price per ton went up like $2?
The price per ton did go up a bit.
Right.
And that was anticipated based on our highway superintendent's knowledge of the market in the field, and he anticipated that and included that in his budget for
Okay.
FY21. So that cost is reflected in the budget.
So my dog picks up sand for the town for free. It's on his undercarriage
How many
every
times?
single morning
After
after a snowstorm. Yeah.
Well, if you want to bid, you
Yeah.
yourself want to bid for the
I could
pickup.
just have him running around the town.
Mona, if we bring in the dogs, all the dogs, and
Yeah.
all the residents that are watching us, bring the dogs to your office,
Okay.
and can we collect the sand?
We could do that.
Be a good idea.
He's like a sand magnet for the town.
Robin's idea.
I
She
don't know,
started this.
were you partying earlier today?
She started it. It was not me. Oh my goodness. Madam Chair, I move to award the delivered washed sand bid to PA Landers, Inc. of Hanover, Mass. and the picked up washed sand bid to G. Lopes Construction of Taunton, Mass.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Just for the record, Rio Hunter will do it for free. On one road.
Mona, you don't have to put that in the record. We can strike that.
So our next item of business is a recommendation for a new assistant town administrator.
Yes.
Mr. Dwelly, would you?
So after quite a lengthy recruitment process and a nice crop of really talented candidates that were interviewed and vetted multiple times by about 8 staff members, department heads and staff members here in town. The interview team selected a candidate who's got great municipal experience in 3 particular communities in this general area. She's got a lot of experience with the Mass Municipal Association, which is fantastic experience as well as a great network. She's a dedicated professional to the field, having continued her education, all opportunities through certain events and certification programs. And so the board individually had an opportunity to meet with her, and I would ask tonight for you to waive the board policy for the assistant town administrator and for department head positions that gives the board 15 days, essentially a 15-day waiting period to reject a candidate if you so choose. So if you're if if you're amenable to that this evening, that would allow me to get an official offer out to the candidate this evening and get her in on the anticipated start date of January 6th.
So first of all, I'd like to say how much I enjoyed the new process. It was very helpful from a board perspective to be able to meet with the recommended candidate and to see what the rest of the team saw, rather than just have a resume. I very much enjoyed the conversation with the candidate. I believe it's a good fit for the town at this time. Experience was great. I really felt the process worked really well.
No, I'm a big fan of inclusive processes and collaboration, and I think that was clearly a much preferred way of going about it.
Agreed.
Good.
All
Well,
right.
we're excited to have her.
Another set of hands, Mona.
Another set of hands.
Mona, you're gonna have a praise
You're gonna be bored.
go take care of the sand.
She's gonna round up the dogs.
You're gonna have somebody in the office with you for the first time in a year and a half.
Okay.
It's gonna feel like a dorm room. You had it by yourself for a while. now you have to
Productivity may
share.
go down.
Yeah.
So if approved, she'll join us actually at our next meeting on the 9th, and we can do an introduction
Great.
publicly at that point.
So if there's no further discussion,
Be my guest.
then I move to waive the board's policy regarding the appointment of department heads and affirm the town administrator's recommendation of appointment for the position of assistant town administrator.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well, we look forward to having a little more help for all of you.
It's a 33% increase.
Very good.
No, it's even more, right? 1 on 2, it's 50% increase.
So the next item of business is the warrant article look ahead. Mr. Dwelly?
Since we're in warrant season, since the warrant opened a few weeks ago and is anticipated to close on January 17th, I wanted to start the dialogue with the board as early as possible about what the warrant is going to potentially shape out to be for 2020 in the fall. So in your packets is a spreadsheet of potential warrant articles. They are color coded, and I'll just quickly review for you what those are, and then we could have a dialogue of any additions, or just the board can have a conversation. So those articles that are in white are your recurring articles. They're your typical kind of financial funding articles, the ones that you typically see year after year. Those highlighted in gray, I anticipate those will be removed, but that's certainly up for conversation. These were articles that were special projects last year. For example, appropriate for the rail trail, or appropriate for Caryl Community Center design. These, I imagine, will drop off. Those highlighted in green are anticipated articles. These are ones that either they're related to projects that are in process, or they're related to things that we've heard from some of our other agencies and boards here in town. So for the public's benefit, I'll just quickly rattle those off. There are 4. One is as related to the Hale conservation restriction, and Selectman Jeffries as the liaison can provide a little more detail for folks on what we're thinking there. The other is would be new for the Board of Health is a water use restriction bylaw. This stems from, in part, I think the conversation that we heard when Colonial Water gave us an update and highlighted for the community that a lot of the spike in usage happens during the summer. Not on here, but I just heard this evening is likely another article related to the Board of Health, a new article related to the Board of Health on establishing a reserve fund, or a revolving fund, or a special reserve fund. The Board of Health is a revenue generating board, and they're interested in having those revenues essentially held in an account to offset their expenses, as opposed to those revenues going into the general fund.
So similar to what Park and Rec does.
Similar to what Park and
Okay.
Rec does, that's correct. And I'll just, as a side note for the board, I'll mention this now. There's a lot of revenue generating entities whose funds go into the general fund. Some folks have kind of a difference of opinion on, there's no necessarily right or wrong way. I think that concept will be highlighted in the DOR's upcoming review on kind of the town's accounting practices, and they'll share with us, kind of best practices. Moving on, the other one is a lease for a solar installation at the town garage. We have an opportunity to put solar panels on the town garage that will cover 75% of the town's current utility electricity usage. So what that'll do is that'll lock you in a particular rate, and you pay that rate in perpetuity for the next 20 years. There is a presentation teed up for the board, for the community, your next meeting on the 9th, from the proponent, as well as our energy coordinator and planner, Gino Carlucci, on this opportunity. And then the last is we anticipate a street acceptance. I don't know which one yet, but planning folks are working that
There's
out
always
with the potential proposal. So those are the anticipated additions that we'll see. And then there's one definitive new article that will be on there that I know of right now, and that's the Cemetery Commission is interested in amending 2 small areas in their bylaws as it relates to their rules and regulations for the cemetery across the street. So that's what we know of at this point.
So I would, just as I think about what may come up over the next couple of months and where we may need appropriations, is earlier in the year, we had the water committee come in here, and we talked a little bit about PFAS testing. And I know the Commonwealth has recently just issued guidelines. So it may be for public water supplies, of which like Chickering is one. And,
Correct.
right. So one of the things we should probably on one of the agendas is have a discussion about PFAS testing, because the expert on the water committee had suggested we wait until the Commonwealth comes out with actual standards, and then potentially there could be funding that
remediation of this,
right,
if there's an issue.
Right, if there's an issue. So I don't know if it's worthwhile putting a placeholder on here, even though we don't know anything right now.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we could put a placeholder. I think just generally, having Jerry and Ron and Caryl
right,
come back to the board, provide the board with an update now with the status of the standard on what that looks like moving
Right.
forward, I think makes sense. So we'll tee that up for
Okay.
maybe as early as the 9th to have that
right,
conversation.
right. Yeah, because I always try to think of what may come up
Might
that we
come up,
might
yeah.
need a placeholder for.
Contingent.
Because before you know it, it's closed.
Right. But, to your point, I left a few things as articles that I've dubbed as recurring, but I think there's still a question. I'd highlight those as the capital stabilization fund, the creation of a stabilization fund. As one of them, as we undertake a financial reserve policy review, as that work happens, as our building superintendent mentioned tonight, there's going to be a tool about what our potential costs look like over the next 20 years. I think these are all the tools in the toolbox that the board was looking for to be able to make a better sense of, hey, maybe we don't want to set up a capital stabilization
You need
fund.
one.
Right,
You
right.
definitely need that.
Right, and like OPEB, I know there's the actuaries are
actuaries
working on a
getting
funding
updated. Yep.
schedule, right?
Yep.
So there's a lot of things going on. No, so this was actually really helpful. It makes you think about, what about Caryl? Are there any?
The only thing that Chris and I have talked about Caryl is taking a harder look at the contingency fund, but it wouldn't be a separate, would it be a separate warrant article?
Well, so that's one thing I'd pose to the board as a way you could move forward. So one of the things, like using the Caryl contingency as an example, and I'll also just use the, IT study and analysis. I know that there was a broader presentation that was much needed. But for those one-time funding projects, just from experience, for example, in Yarmouth, we used to just put those into one article. And you would just list out the project, and you'd list out the amount. Presenters would come up and present, here's what we're looking to do. But they'd all be baked into one article because they were really just one-time kind of.
But voters could vote down
They could vote
line
down
item.
each one if they wanted.
Right,
It was
so-
nice to put them in one.
It was just, in the case of Caryl, there are two things. There's sort of, we had allocated we thought we had allocated about $100,000. It turns out we have about $83,000.
Okay.
So you top it off would be sort of the idea. And then there was CMAC is embarking on a sort of a business continuity type exercise with a small b and a small c. And just listening to the presentation at the last meeting earlier this month, there may be costs associated with, if something happened for the building and the building, we needed to relocate, there'd be costs associated with that.
Are those covered by insurance or no? Like if there was a leak or something?
I don't know. And so the idea was, all right, let's put some monies aside in the contingency account to cover that eventuality. It was a recommendation that was sort of made out of CMAC. And I talked to Chris about that earlier. That would be the things that would come, that I would see coming up.
I think from Selectman Spring's comments, it's more of a planning, being proactive about anticipating.
Yes.
Emergency, if there was a flood there, that would likely
Right.
be covered by insurance
Right,
company,
right.
but moving people in anticipation of construction would cover.
Okay.
So this would help cover that.
So that's about it for Caryl.
Yeah, right, okay. No, I mean,
And it's relatively modest amount of
Right.
money.
right. So maybe until the warrant closes, just to keep this on the agenda, just so we can continue to have the conversation.
I'll keep this, and what I will also do is I will amend that kind of running list of one-time
Yeah.
expenses that
Yeah.
you'll have as kind of a supplemental look, so you see the full picture. Yeah.
Okay,
Sounds
great.
good. All right. So there's no action needed on our part?
No action
Not
needed
yet.
at this point.
All right.
But this will be on your agendas up until it closes.
Okay.
Which is January 18th. So one more time on the 9th.
Do we get two, or do we get
Yeah.
one? And
We get
you get 2 bites of the apple?
16th, 23rd. Yeah, it's 9th and 23rd. It's okay.
No, it looks like it's just the next
the
meeting.
9th.
Yeah.
Right, because it closes the 22nd, right?
I thought it was the 17th, but
19th.
John's saying the 18th.
19th.
What date is it?
19th.
It's the 17th.
Well, I don't know.
And I said the 22nd. so-
Moving dates around.
Well,
But if,
it's the Mona.
yeah.
She just decides that it's just changes it, and that's the date.
does the board feel as though you'd like a second meeting? Do you want to see on the 9th if another meeting needs to happen at that point?
Well, if
just in case
something
on the
comes
warrant,
up,
or
if something comes up, we could
just schedule
just
one?
schedule one, and maybe that would just be the focus, it would just be the focus of
Yeah,
it.
we've done that. That's been pretty
Yeah, we've
helpful
done
when we
that
have to,
before, yeah, if we have to, but,
And placeholders are a really good thing. You can, in anticipation, have a placeholder and always remove it.
That's right.
So, thank you.
all right, so the next item of business is appointment to the Caryl Management or CMAC Committee. And so the chair of that committee, Kathy Weld, is requesting that we appoint Jennifer James to CMAC for a 3-year term expiring June 30th, 2022.
So I asked Kathy to send a little bio, which she did.
Okay.
Jennifer came to our last meeting a little bit late, and I had to leave a little bit early, so I didn't I introduced myself and said welcome. But I think the bio, the brief bio,
So I could paraphrase that, or unless you would like to. So
No,
she,
go
right,
ahead. Yeah.
you know, so Jennifer is an active member of the Dover Mothers Association, which is actually housed in the Caryl Community Center. And she's also a freelance grant writer. And, you know, she's interested in getting more involved in the town, so,
She sounds like a great addition.
right.
Yeah, it
right.
really is nice to have
Right.
some
Right.
transition. It's really great to have someone with deep connections to the Dover Mothers Association, because they're really interested in what's going on
Right.
with the Caryl building, so.
And they can also, they're a conduit for information to a different,
And you like
Group.
the grant writing part.
I thought the grant writing part was an
Great.
asset,
Yeah.
right? So I moved to appoint Jennifer James to the to CMAC for the 3-year term expiring on June 30th, 2022.
Second.
Well,
And I'd like to thank Jennifer for volunteering and
Yes,
being involved in the
absolutely.
town. Thank you. The next item is the Selectmen's updates, and I really don't have an update on the rail trail. Do you have anything? I should touch base with them, so.
There's nothing at this point.
Right, right.
So how should we handle that going forward?
Well, it's really in there.
I know it's
Cool.
moved, so should we just push this to Chris to stay in as part of his update?
Well, we have been in touch with them, but there hasn't,
Nothing moved.
nothing's really moved, and
They
it's
have nothing to
been,
report, so.
right. You know, they made a connection, they're talking, but nothing's
But
happened.
we know how that goes.
You know,
Right.
yeah.
Right, we
I-
also, you know, we also reminded them when the grant needs to be in, if they wanted to apply for a grant, we offered to assist them with that. So I could,
quiet on the
right,
Western
it's
Front.
just been quiet, so I could ping them again.
I've had conversations with Kevin. I'll have a conversation with him again tomorrow, just in terms of helping them in any way we can to connect dots, to share information, contact information, phone numbers.
Yeah, they have all of that.
They all, yeah, and it's
Well-
as we know, the process is painfully slow.
So it is, I'll step back. I mean, I think it really is because there was so much interest in this event, over the years. I mean, I guess we should keep it on the agenda for us and give regular updates. I get asked about it all the time, really.
I never get asked about it anymore, so,
We must be in different social circles.
right.
But I mean, it's like, what's happened? What's happening? What's going on? And so maybe at some point, a little brief rehistory of it.
Yeah, we can, we can check in, but I think the last update, the last meeting, there seemed to be, our sense was that it seemed like the MBTA's preference was to negotiate directly with communities.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's
With the
been
community.
definitive with the community. And I don't know if that's been a definitive line in the sand, but that was kind of that was a sense that Madam Chair and I got from our last
Wow.
But they felt that they wanted to pursue it, so.
Okay,
So we'll see.
thank you.
So the next item of business is just the upcoming agendas.
So we'll add, I'll coordinate with the group that I mentioned, see how quickly we can get them in on a
Mhm.
PFAS update.
Okay.
The state set that standard.
We have a busy meeting, January 9th.
January 22nd, did we move the 23rd to the 22nd?
Yes.
Yes.
Right on top with my
Right.
Christmas
Right, because I have a dinner,
tree tie.
I have a dinner I have to be at.
Bob's taking over.
I offered that.
Well, you saw my note on that one. It would have been a bold move on Robin's part.
So Wednesday, the 22nd.
I don't think we should add anything to the 9th. I think it's a pretty full agenda.
Okay.
So the next is, I get to be quiet now. It's all yours, Chris. The
Thank you.
town administrator's update.
So the tab, two big pieces of movement at the last tab meeting. One is on a revised website. So a recommendation has been made on a path forward. So we'll be meeting, I and Diana will be meeting with the vendor. We just scheduled this evening with them the second week of January to shape out the scope of work and also get a better understanding of the project and the timeline of when we can anticipate the website being rolled out. It looks like, based on conversations that we've had, that we can expect to see something within the 2 to 3 month range. But that is a fully revitalized, revamped, functional, quick, beautiful website.
Did you guys look at
Yeah,
at the product?
right.
Okay.
Because you said, remember I told
I know
you,
you
I
did,
said,
but
I
I
said,
haven't heard from
I
you.
said I didn't know what the issue was. I was ready to sign up months
Yeah,
ago.
she had a big stick and she was hitting it.
So this will be a really great thing, and they provide a lot of support, which really helps project manage it. So there's really not much needed in terms of people capacity, staff capacity to usher that along, which is a really great thing. So that's the future. On the present state, TAB and a member of the TAB in particular, the chair and Diana, have been working on increasing the speed of the platform to host our current website so that folks don't have to wait
It's a little bit better.
a minute for it to load. So we should be seeing increased times for the next couple of months until we get a new platform. But then we'll be off and running.
Anthony offered to help us see if we could increase the line speed, right?
So that was it was Greg on the website post.
Right.
Anthony from
The regional
IT director has been working with us on helping to assess our broadband speed at all of our town facilities. I know that there's actually been a question over at the community center on some of the applications running the Wi-Fi over there and draining resources. So he's been working with Diana and with our and with the vendors on figuring out how to increase those speeds, as well as the public Wi-Fi in these buildings, which is a really great thing. So thanks for bringing that up.
I want to thank
Kudos-
Anthony for
kudos to
his
him
hand went up. That
for,
was
for volunteering his time, which
That's
is
great.
greatly appreciated. The second piece on the tab is on our IT infrastructure assessment. So when we last discussed the IT infrastructure assessment is completed. There were really what I would characterize as three main recommendations. One is around cybersecurity. We were already covered and underway on that. And the second is around improving our network connectivity. So making sure our computers, our voice over, phones, everything is connected, it's secure, it's on a domain, it's manageable from one location. We gave the instance when we gave this update to staff yesterday at department head meeting. Right now we have to, our IT person, Diana, has to go around to workstations and say, hey, can you please shut down your computer so I can update your email account, which is, it shouldn't be that way. And so with this work, we'll be able to get rid of that. These patches will automatically go out throughout the entire network during the weekends, so when there's no disruption. You come in on Monday, your computer's up to date, it's secure, you don't have anyone from the Ukraine looking at you on the other side.
We think that'll have a big impact.
And that'll have a huge
Well, it
impact.
should have a huge impact on her time,
On her time,
Yeah.
Right.
yes.
because she should be able to spend time.
As well as protecting,
Right.
Yeah. And what's great, it's not only just, the network piece of it, but it's, all the other applications that people are running, right? So people won't be on different versions of Word or different versions of Excel, so that when you email Mona an Excel spreadsheet,
She
can't
can open it.
because, you know, I'm using one that's 10 years old, you know, so all of that stuff will go away and will be able to be centrally managed, which is the right way, the efficient way, and the cost-effective way. And then the third piece that I'd highlight is, and this also dovetails nicely with our capital conversation, is IT has never been it's part of a capital request before, and that really
Selectmen's office.
and that's for the Selectmen's office. And that really, you should consider your hardware infrastructure as a capital asset that you want to rotate out on a regular
Right.
basis. And that's part of the problem that we're experiencing here is that, you know, some people's desktops are, you know, over 10 years old and they just don't have the speed and capacity to be able to function correctly. So we'll be working on not only a replacement plan for those immediately, but also a replacement plan that we can incorporate in our capital budget process moving forward, which is a really great
Right.
thing. So
Which is exactly what the schools do. They have a technology plan and
Right.
they just rotate the
Exactly.
things
That
in.
evolved over time. Yeah.
Right, right.
And that's what we're at. I mean, it's fix the things that need to be fixed,
Right.
use the funds and build your inventory and replacement
build off of
cycle.
there, yep.
You're in good shape.
Which is exactly what we had said at town meeting.
It is
you know.
exactly what we had
It's
said.
not as though we're looking for a ERP system. We're just looking to get town employees the tools they
basic
need
stuff.
to get their job done.
That was line two. That was the
Right.
benefit. That was line two of
Right.
the presentation.
Right.
So that actually, I mean, it was reasonably well done document. I think Chris had a fair hand in there in sort of helping organize. And it's a pretty good plan to get us to square one, really.
So I'll be on the phone with them, with Retrofit tomorrow to finalize the scope of work, and then again, the project schedule and the expectations of deliverables so that we're all clear on that. And, you know, now that I think of it, maybe just given the magnitude of kind of, you know, the foresight that the board and the community had last year to tee this up and the progress that we made, maybe does it make sense once we finalize the scope of work and we start to have Retrofit come into a board meeting at some point to give the board and the community an update on
Sure.
what's happened?
Sure,
where we're
absolutely.
at, and look
Right.
I
forward?
mean, again, we're spending town money, you know?
Not the ninth.
Not the 9th.
Okay.
Let's do it on the 23rd.
All right. We'll look to schedule that.
Bob will be here.
Alone.
I'll be
No,
there.
Chris will be here.
Mona's in.
Notice.
So that's the tab on Hale. Selectman Jeffries, you want to take the lead on?
Sure. I'll give you the quick update on Hale. So the Hale, the Joint Committee on Hale has met 3 times. We will have a placeholder.
So the joint committee, who's involved?
So, good question. So Hale, as its entity, there are 5 people in the Hale entity there that are attending the meetings. They're made up of their director, Eric Arnold, associate director, who has been contracted with Hale, is essentially a private contractor to Hale, and a couple of board members to the Hale board who are meeting with the town. Amy Moot from Open Space, Kate Canny. So there's a number
So that's
of
Dover Group.
there are a number of people within Dover,
Yes.
within various, who make up the Dover portion of that. There's also a mirror image of that in Westwood
Okay,
So-
so it's 3 entities, Westwood, Dover, and Hale.
and
But
Hale
Hale meets independently with Westwood and they
Correct.
meet independently with Dover.
with Dover.
This was together.
This group, we've met 3 times as the
okay.
Dover
The Dover.
contingent
Hale
of
and
that.
Dover.
Okay.
So we have, the Dover contingent has met three times. We have determined at our last meeting, and in all 3 meetings, great presentations from Hale, lots of feedback, lots of collaboration with the various other groups and stakeholders. Essentially what you have is 1,200 acres of land that is made up, that comprise of 2 towns. And it's essentially 680 acres in
For
Dover.
Dover.
Right, so you just heard DA earlier today speak about 900 acres. So combine 900 acres with 680 acres in the Hale, you have a very, very large amount of land that is impacted in this conversation. The conversation that we began last year with open space and open space conservation has dovetailed into this conversation extremely well. I'd encourage the people at home, people watching us at home, to look at the Hale website, to look at the Hale, what Hale has put out this year as they've gone down this path. So their goal is to look at the combination of a conservation restriction and monetizing their conservation restriction process so they can be a self-sustaining organization in perpetuity.
To build an endowment.
To build an endowment, exactly. To build an endowment. So it's going to require cooperation from the cities and towns around it. The two primary stakeholders land-wise are Dover and Westwood. So the conversation has taken many very positive steps forward where we have brought suggestions to Hale to us in terms of how do we address the conversation of what would we have to do if we needed X number of dollars and they had to monetize pieces of land. They have a great program of continuing education that's been that they've undertaken, and it has continued to grow. So their conversations are happening not only with us, but with members of the school and members of various school committees. They have an inner city network that they bring school-age kids out to Hale that has worked extremely well and continues to grow. They lease the land. They have many, many, many different parts of the land that are currently in use. They want to build upon that. There's a summer camp that services kids from the Combined Jewish Philanthropies and the Grossman camp. So they have leaseholders, they have stakeholders that they're very, very closely aligned with that are looking to not only Dover and Westwood, but the surrounding communities to say, we want to do this in a very positive, meaningful way. Will you help us? And our answer, our immediate answer to them is absolutely, because if they did it without us, the impact could be dramatic.
So I think an important piece of this is that Hale recognizes they need a partnership to put the CRs on the land. And so what they envision is Hale doing a significant amount of fundraising themselves.
Yeah.
And then also asking for support from Dover and Westwood.
Yep.
And, potentially because Hale's mission is education, and it is and their mission is to bring underprivileged youth and teach them about outdoor, that potentially then this may dovetail with the Commonwealth as well, with some of the programs that they're trying to do, and potentially there may be some grants available as well.
Okay.
But it's a multi-year, I envision it to be a multi-year process to figure out.
We got a lot of
how
moving
to do-
parts.
Right,
There's a lot of moving
But
And
parts.
we're
as-
looking at a fair amount of money.
right, and
Yeah.
as you recall, they did come here, Hale, and
Yeah.
made their presentation
Yeah, no,
about
they're
this
very,
vision.
very good.
Yeah.
And I think, setting up these working groups in both communities so that they can understand the needs of the communities and some of the pain points for the communities is really helpful to bring them to ultimately get an answer.
One of the things that we've stressed and has been, our board, has stressed on many different issues for our constituents is analyzing over a very long period of time the cost of both being proactive and the cost of being reactive. And I think we've proven over and over and over that the cost of being reactive is a lot higher
Just not as visible.
than exactly.
Right,
Very
and
well said.
this is a it's a great segue into a larger conversation.
Into a larger conversation. Open space and education are always
Yep.
one and
Two.
one. One and one, one and one, one and one.
Yep.
Open space, education, conservation of open space, education, those are the two things. So that's our report. So we anticipate a warrant article, and we will have a warrant article before the article closes. Just like last year with articles that we considered were not quite ready for
Prime
our
time.
prime time and our voting. That may happen, but I think it's much more effective to really begin the process, to have the open hearings, public hearings, debate, conversation amongst this board, our constituents on TV, in public,
Yep.
so there's a better understanding of what our role would be, the roles of other communities, as well as Westwood, which has a very different tax base, a much bigger need to address.
Okay. That's good. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Do you have anything on Caryl?
I do.
Okay.
So the OPM selection team met last week. We finalized request for qualifications for an OPM, highlights the anticipated scope of work, the goals, the evaluation criteria in which respondents will be evaluated. That is finalized and has been sent to council for their final review, and we anticipate that coming back from council any day now. So we initially anticipated getting the RFQ package out to bid January 15th, but I imagine that barring any unforeseen circumstances, we'll be able to get it out next week. So that process will be underway relatively soon. And just a few other odds and ends here. Our financial policies work that we discussed and voted on a few weeks ago, that'll start on January 8th. The firm will come in, and it's actually much more extensive than I thought, which is great. So they'll look not only on those, I guess what I'll characterize them as more public-facing policies, such as creating a capital stabilization fund, or what do you do with free cash. They'll do that, but they'll also are going to take an extensive look on our internal processes from a day-to-day transaction standpoint. For example, cash reconciliation between the treasurer collector's office and the accounting office. And so I think what we're going to do is we're going to split those into, we'll have the internal folks start with the internal folks, those are the finance team here, and then the external folks can run parallel, and those will include the stakeholders, a stakeholder from the board, Warrant, and capital, and if there's anyone else. So I think I'll coordinate through the chair on identifying those stakeholders, unless you wanted to have that conversation here tonight or wanted to appoint somebody, but
This is your bailiwick.
Right.
okay,
I'll take up the challenge.
wonderful.
He knows a thing or two.
Yeah, so that's exciting, and this is, very much like Carl's work and discussion today. This is all this work to help hopefully set us up
Right.
to be able to address a lot of these things at town meeting, which is good. So everything's syncing up at this point. In addition, I shouldn't say in addition, but similarly, the DOR will be in town starting January 13th.
Wow, okay.
And so that is
January's gonna be a
not
busy
so
month.
much, January's gonna be a busy month, not so much just on policies, but more of a broad kind of
Right.
financial operation
So the
perspective,
8th and the 13th.
which is really great, the 8th and the 13th. What's nice though is, the financial policy work, the background work that needs to be done, that helps with the DOR review. It also helps with our internal audit that happens. So you're putting together work that helps for 3 different projects, which is nice. But they'll start that process on January 13th. That'll start with stakeholder conversations as well. They usually meet with the chair of the board, the chair of Warrant, the chair of capital, your finance staff, to just start the conversation, and they collect all that information to start their review. So that'll be underway. I just want to congratulate our assessor, Amy Gao, for her for setting her first tax rate here in the community earlier in December. Congratulations to her and the finance team for getting that done. We came in at 12.84 per thousand, which was less than estimates had. So that's great. And now our treasurer gets to send everyone in town a holiday gift in the next couple
Send mine
of weeks.
to John.
Yeah. Just like everything else, you know.
And then just the last thing I have is municipal project manager position is out. It closes on January 8th. We're receiving.
It's a busy day, January
applications
8th.
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about the 8th, but. So that's good. So that process underway.
You better hope I make it out of my
Approve the
escape
process.
room in New York City. So.
Yeah.
Oh.
Is there any way we
Is that something you want to share with us?
It's team building,
big team
an
building.
escape room.
Can you imagine if they don't get out of the room? What's that team going to be like?
Doesn't happen till a little later.
That's it on my end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next item of business is our consent agenda. And that is to approve special liquor licenses for December 13th, January, which was retroactive, January 2nd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 8th, 23rd of 2020.
A lot of retreats and holiday parties.
Lots
Well,
of.
this is after the holidays. It's New Year's,
That's why you need the retreats.
right,
These are all Boston College events at the Connor Center,
right.
of which I have not been invited.
For good reason.
Yeah, because
All right, so before you start whining, I'm going to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Last one more.
Right, well,
We have to move.
right, so before we move to adjourn the meeting and to go into executive session, tonight is the last meeting of 2019.
Oh, yes it is.
And I wanted to take the opportunity to once again thank the staff in the Board of Selectmen's office for everything that you do. Mona, Chris, if Felicia was here, and everybody else. We know it's been a tough year, but it looks like you're finally getting some reinforcements.
Fingers crossed.
Right. So we hope that, we really appreciate, Mona, everything you have done to hold this together and always have a smile on your face,
And flip-flops.
a joke to tell. So thank you very much for everything. And Chris, 6 months, 4 months, I really hope it's been fun. I've certainly noticed
His
a
hair's
lot.
turning gray.
Well, right, but, a lot of good things are happening
Yeah.
here, and I think a lot of good things will continue to happen, so.
Yep, it's been wonderful. I appreciate that. Thank you. But as you recognized, it's Mona has held
The
the
fort
office
down.
and the organization, I'd say, together for over a year in
Right.
a tough period, and I can't say enough about everything that she's done, certainly for me as well. So thank you, and to all the staff and to the board and the residents, everyone. It's been a wonderful year. And 2020, I think, will be even better.
So, it's hard for people who are newer to town to understand just how many people it takes to run the town.
Until you don't have enough people,
Well,
and even the
so-
board doesn't understand.
And it is, it's just, we're grateful that people step up and give their time and give their knowledge and give their energy to help keep the town really top notch. At a high rate. So, clearly goes for all of the employees, it clearly goes for you guys, but I don't want to forget all of the volunteers.
Volunteers.
Right.
Across the organization. For me, thank you very much and have a wonderful, wonderful holiday.
And to all of our people at the Dover Television who put this on for us,
the staff, they're all the people who work behind the scenes. I should turn that camera around so we can say hello.
Make sure he's awake.
Thank you very much for tolerating us every
Especially
week.
John.
Especially me.
So with that, I would, so what do we adjourn the meeting first, or do I move?
I think you just do the move.
So I move that the board enter into executive session with respect to collective bargaining negotiations with the Dover Police Association, not to return to open session. Further, as chairman, I declare that an open meeting discussion will have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the town. And I will now poll to go into executive session.
Aye.
And so with that, we're going to adjourn the open session. Again, we wish everybody a great and wonderful holiday season, and we wish you all a prosperous 2020. Thank you and good night.
I'll second that.